Hello Internet, Taliesin here, and welcome to a weekly reset special report. An episode I don't really want to make, an episode I hadn't planned on making. There wasn't supposed to be any reset at all this weekend because in about 20 minutes, we're supposed to be traveling to see family. So you know it's gotta be something big. Internet, I'm sorry about this, but we need to talk about patch 11.1.5. But Taliesin, I hear you cry, it can't be 11.1.5 because you said it was big. And yes, that's a very good joke actually, I wish I'd thought of it. And you're right, 11.1.5 is what we can accurately refer to now as a troubled patch at this point, and the trouble just keeps getting worse to the extent that now, in the last 24 hours, Blizzard have well and truly shot 11.1.5 in the foot with like a gun, and the community's goodwill appears to have run dry. Man, do you remember when they told us what was in patch 11.1.5 and we were all like, oh, that looks surprisingly good. What I wouldn't give to go back to those days before the PTR revealed that the Puzzling Cartel Chips, aka the Dinars, aka raid loot vendor tokens, would be included at around 3 months of Liberation of Undermine raid renown, and which made everyone very excited, but also kind of angry because they had to wait 3 months for them. But then Blizzard removed them completely and everyone was like, yo, Ian, where's my Dinars at, mate? And Ian was like, yeah, they're coming, don't worry bro, I got you, chill. What I wouldn't give to go back to that utopia before the scheduling announcement revealed that the impressive amount of 11.1.5 content would actually be spread thinner than a Tesla dealership's swastika removal team, and still no mention of the Puzzling Cartel Chips. Oh, for the Halcyon days when I was young and carefree before the patch launched and the one event out of 3 that we were allowed to play was completely broken and couldn't be completed or really understood by most players. Oh, the things I would do, the deals I would make, the limbs I would sell to be able to forget last night when Blizzard finally gave details of when and how Puzzling Cartel Chips would be rolled out. And the community cheered and roared their approval, chanting Ian's name in the streets, erecting statues of WoW systems designers in their town squares, singing songs about the wonderful Puzzling Cartel Chips and how WoW was saved and definitely the best game ever made. No, it was a shit show, obviously. Insane garbage. Massive L, Blizzard. This has to be the worst system ever added. I love this company. I think that probably says love. Basically, hard skip for 99.999999% of players. Well done, Blizzard. Worst idea ever. This is way beyond stupidity. What a load of bullfish. Jesus! That's right, faced with a very frustrated reaction from their player base over a seemingly completely pointlessly time-gated patch rollout and buggy implementation, Blizzard needed a big win with the Puzzling Cartel Chips, and it's fair to say they have not got one. So let's talk about the Puzzling Cartel Chips and why everyone hates them. There have been extra Blizzard updates on this overnight too, which we are going to cover as well, but let's take things in order. The Dinar currency first appeared at the end of Shadowlands in the fated Season 4, itself a new experiment, kind of like a victory lap, or that's probably the wrong term for Shadowlands, a wind down season at the end. There was no new raid, the main signal of a major patch, and instead Season 4 cycled through the existing Shadowlands raids, 1 per week, with that current fated raid awarding the current tier of item level loot. The Mythic Plus season was a whole bunch of new dungeons. It was kind of like the last day at school where you don't have to wear uniform, and Blizzard announced a series of 3 quests whereby killing 30 fated bosses, so 3 weeks work, would award 1 Puzzling Cartel Dinar. Then killing another 15 bosses, 2 weeks work, would award a second, and then killing 5 fated bosses, after all that, would give players a 3rd dinar, each of which could be used to buy any item of raid gear from a vendor. This gear was only purchasable at normal item level, but all gear that season could be upgraded using confounding ciphers. You needed to kill 20 heroic bosses to make a confounding antique cipher, which could upgrade your gear to heroic level, and 20 mythic boss kills would allow you to make a confounding ancient cipher, which could then be used to upgrade gear to mythic level. So to simplify all that, if you wanted to buy 3 pieces of mythic raid gear from the vendor with your dinars, you would need to kill 60 mythic fated bosses in Season 4 to earn the dinars that you needed and the currency to upgrade them to mythic. Although really, if somehow you'd managed to not get the gear you wanted from those 60 mythic boss kills, it was very much bad luck protection. As you can probably tell from me just describing it, it was clunky as all shit, but WoW had never really seen anything like it before, so it was fun and kind of exciting. So much so that Blizzard repeated the trick in Dragonflight, again in Season 4, which they called the Awakened Season this time, but it was just like Shadowlands' Fated one. No new raid, cycling old raids, and this time players would get 1 Awakened Gold bullion per week that would drop randomly from raid bosses, but of any difficulty. So LFR or Mythic Raid, it didn't matter. You could get your weekly bullion, and each single bullion could be used to purchase an item which would be of normal item level, but with 12 levels of upgrade track that could be then used to upgrade the gear to the maximum mythic item level. Although of course, you would need the flight stones and the appropriate level crests to do that. So this opened up the system to Mythic Plus players who didn't raid. It was now very simple in Dragonflight for dungeon players to do a wing of LFR, get their bullion, buy their gear, and then get the stones and crests for upgrading it from the content that they already played loads of, dungeons. Big success. Everybody liked that. And that is why it was so surprising when the Puzzling Cartel chip cropped up on the Liberation of Undermine Renown track in the first place. Because this isn't a fated or awakened season at the end of the expansion where the teachers can't be tossed and just whack a video a labyrinth on for everyone to watch. This is a proper, bona fide competitive season with a raid, and perhaps even more importantly, another new competitive season after it. Let me explain to you how Blizzard announced last night, finally, how the chips would work. Players would pick up a weekly quest to kill 4 raid bosses in exchange for 1 Puzzling Cartel chip, and 3 Puzzling Cartel chips are needed to buy 1 raid item from the vendor, with players able to receive a maximum of 6 overall. So 3 weeks of killing 4 raid bosses per week per loot item. Twice. Seems kind of time-gatey, but okay, whatever. Furthermore, and this is the big change from previous seasons, to buy an item from a certain boss's loot table at heroic level, you need to have killed that boss at least once on any difficulty. So if you've killed LFR Gallywix, you can purchase the heroic version of the Jaster Diamond. But if you want it at mythic level, which obviously you do, then you need to have killed the appropriate boss at least once at mythic level. So you want the mythic Jaster Diamond? You need to have killed mythic Gallywix at least once, which at the time of writing, only 168 guilds in the whole of the NA and the EU have. This means that the vast majority of players simply will not be getting the mythic level Jaster, or Eye of Kazan, or Mugsy's Jugsy Jug, or House of Cards, or any of their other best in slot trinkets that happen to be on later bosses in that raid. That has made people very sad. Whereas Dragonflight's system allowed players to get their hands on their desired items by doing any level of raid content and then leveling it up to max by playing Mythic Plus if they wanted, Undermine's version requires players kill Mythic raid bosses that not many people, relatively, are capable of killing to get that specific loot. The time gating sucks too, but actually, that has now been addressed by Blizzard in a new update detailed in a blue post last night. The first 3 dinars will now be awarded on the first completion of the quest in week 1 on May the 13th, meaning that players will be able to go and buy 1 item straight away, with the next 3 chips coming individually in the 3 subsequent weeks as originally planned for the second item, and then another 3 over the 3 weeks after that for an extra 3rd item. And that's good. That's a good change and an improvement. But it's not the main thing people are upset about, is it? I'm not reading all that, but you're all shitters! They fixed the wrong part! Wow, they still missed the point, Lamau! Make the game fun again. I'm just gonna go ahead and make my feelings on this issue extremely clear. Blizzard absolutely dicked this up. This is a huge failure, because how can anything not be described as a failure when this many people are so angry about it? And it would be bad enough if everyone loved 11.1.5 otherwise, but they don't, because Blizzard are mind-bogglingly reverting back to the worst, most arbitrary content time gating, which can only be for engagement purposes, because no one thinks it's the optimal rollout for having fun, do they? The reaction to this cartel chip news would be big and loud and disappointed anyway, but combined with the other baffling decisions around the patch, it's just even worse, and that's shit. Blizzard have dropped the ball here for sure, and now that I've made that clear, can I play devil's advocate just for a second here? I understand why people are upset that the Puzzling Cartel Chip system isn't more like the Dragonflight version, but would it really be reasonable to expect it to be? That being a meaningless just for fun Season 4 and this being in the middle of an expansion, maybe that isn't an important difference to you actually, and that's fine. I guess it comes down to what you want this system to be, and I don't think anyone really agrees on that. Is this bad luck protection like in Shadowlands, or is it free loot like in Dragonflight? Because this new cartel chip mechanic is going to work very well as a bad luck protection. It's actually way better than Shadowlands' version there, but it's definitely not the same as Dragonflight's now everyone can get their Bis raid trinket at max level even if they've never even been near a mythic raid thing. And I'm not saying bad luck protection or free gear is bad or preferable, either one of them. I'm just trying to point out the difference. I think the loudest and most understandable complaints are coming from the Mythic Plus community. Dragonflight's system of getting the gear at normal item level very easily and then upgrading it through an unusually long track using the flight stones and crests that you would any gear included them in a way that this version just doesn't. And I can imagine that's incredibly frustrating, not just because got it for you not getting Mythic Jester, but because it feels like Blizzard is saying that your favored form of content is less important, deserves less good rewards. Look, I do most of my gearing through Mythic Plus. Every item of gear that my main character wears at Mythic level, which by the end of the season is basically all of it, I get through Mythic Plus Great Vault slots. I am not going to get Mythic Jesters or Jugsy's Mugsy Jugsy Jug or even Mr. Pick Me Up. And I have all that at heroic level already, so last night's news means I am one of many people for whom the Puzzling Cartel chip is now basically useless. On my main, at least. So yes, I absolutely understand this criticism and anger, but it's not completely a one-way street, is it? So last season, if Warcraft logs is anything to go by, most players had at least one Bis trinket that they could only get from Mythic Plus, be it Sack Brood or Empowering Crystal or Skardin's Grace or whatever. So in that case, players were bum out of luck if they only raided and don't like doing dungeons. And here's the thing that I know none of you are going to like, but I think it's true. I think to a certain extent, it is good that different loot comes from different places. I am very old, and maybe this is just an old-fashioned romantic view of MMOs, but the idea that to get this thing, I need to do this, and to get this other thing, I might have to do something different, that's like a fundamental basic in the DNA of an MMO for me, as long as the balance is good. And I would definitely argue that balance was much better in Season 1. Most top-rated players were using one raid trinket and one dungeon trinket, whether they were raiding or doing Mythic Plus last season. This season, nearly everyone's Bis in both trinket slots is not just from the raid, but from the last bosses of that raid, which puts it into the reach of much fewer people. So yeah, it's understandable to get upset with the new cartel chip system because it doesn't actually allow you to get the gear you wanted. You're not wrong, I get that, but it actually ignores the real problem here, which is that everyone's Bis drops from late level raid bosses. And look, I'm sitting here saying that's the problem, but I'm also sitting here like, yeah, the most desirable loot drops from the hardest bosses in the game, no shit, isn't that literally how it's meant to work? And whereas I do agree completely 100% with their sentiment, I really do, players on social media disgusted that they are expected to kill Mythic Gallywix to be entitled to Mythic Gallywix loot it's just kind of funny, because in isolation, it doesn't sound like an unreasonable ask, does it? But don't get angry with me, I accept all of this is just me more being a human being and being able to feel two different ways about something at the same time. Mostly, and in all the important ways, I agree that the Puzzling Cartel system is very unsatisfying. I think that as Blizz has taken the walls down around raid gear, the game has got better and more enjoyable for most players, albeit arguably at the slight expense of raiding. But being able to get tier sets without ever setting foot in the raid is huge and good. The vault is good. The upgrade system is good. And if Blizz really want to fix this mess, they should probably more look in that kind of direction than at arbitrary roadblocks and gates. I'm not a system designer, it's not my job, but I think maybe a good middle ground that would probably work better is if it was something like you get a Puzzling Cartel chip from LFR and normal raid bosses that buys you a normal piece of gear, but that can then be upgraded with the appropriate crests to max heroic level, and then heroic and mythic boss kills get you a heroic piece that can be upgraded to max mythic level. Everyone is then potentially getting gear better than they'd otherwise be able to get. They get to upgrade it in the content they like to do. It seems better, but I don't know what I'm talking about. And there's good changes coming with the cartel chips going live. Blizz are calling it the Turbo event. It's going to see heroic and mythic upgrade tracks extended by 2 upgrades from 6 to 8. Delves are going to award more undercoins and crests. It's mostly very good. And it's annoying because Blizzard must have known that everything else was going to get completely ignored by the fury this cartel chip stuff was obviously going to cause. It's really disappointing. Obviously, I wouldn't be surprised if there are more Blizzard changes to come as we near the Dinar introduction. The second blue post from yesterday would seem to indicate that they are very open to that, but you could argue the damage has kind of already been done. You wonder if there's really anything that can make 11.1.5 be remembered as anything other than a really annoying, unpopular patch now, despite how much good stuff there undoubtedly is in it. Eventually, still to come at some point. I still really like The War Within and Season 2. Personally, I've been having an absolute blast in Raid and Mythic Plus this season, and all of this isn't enough to really spoil anything for me. Cartel chips have gone from something I could use to something I'm probably not going to have much use for, really, and that's fine, whatever. What I do find frustrating and most worrying by far is the signs in all of this that Blizzard might be slipping back into some bad old habits. Habits that they have done so well to move away from in Dragonflight and War Within and, you know, make the game really good again until basically this patch. Because this time gating the content of the patch over like 3 months, that's not it. Time gating the upgrades and horrific visions when you've already waited for it for a month, that's not it. The time gating and arbitrary hurdles here, I don't really think that's it either. I need some community reaction here to tell me what to think, so let us know in the comments below. And thanks for joining us today. Don't thank us, thank our patrons. I've got a train to catch, bye.